Hi, I'm Trent Mell. I'm President and CEO of First Cobalt. First Cobalt, we created the company back in March of 2017. We were, I guess, one of the early entrants into the cobalt space for the electric vehicle revolution, and brought together a team of operators. All of us come from bigger companies. Myself started at Barrick Gold, and I've worked my way through nickel and palladium and various commodities. And then we started looking around the world, looking for assets. And so we started our life as a mineral exploration company. And through that process, we landed on some great assets in Canada and the US and devised a strategy that was focused on trying to develop an alternate supply chain to cobalt, which today is based out of the DRC in China. And we've been successful at that. As of last year, we refocused the company to get further downstream in the automotive supply chain and focus on refining. We got a permitted refinery in Ontario, and we are moving that forward in 2020 to get it to production. When we started looking at the First Cobalt Refinery and what we could do to bring it back into production, we're faced with the reality that there is no significant cobalt mining in North America today. It's coming, including our own asset in Idaho, which is looking to be very prospective. But we've got an asset, it's ready to go, it's in fabulous condition. But the feedstock was the issue. And so when you look at the global supply chain today, about 70% of global mined cobalt is coming out of the DRC, and most of that then goes to China, which then controls about 80% of the cobalt sulfate market, and that's the chemical form of cobalt that you put into electric vehicle batteries. And so we thought, why not bring some of that material to Canada rather than ship it all to China? And that's what set us on the path as we tested the product. It proved to be very compatible with our facility. Moreover, probably higher grade and probably easier to treat than what we have received historically in the facility. And so it set us on a fast track and a bit of a courting process. And we have, as a result of scoping studies and metallurgical tests, we ran a bit of a marketing exercise and landed on a strategic relationship with Glencore. And the focus for us this year is to try to capitalize on that partnership and see first production on the continent of a battery grade sulfate by hopefully November of 2020. I like to remind investors that we're not a mining company. We're firmly part of the automotive supply chain. We're at the chemicals form. It's a widget factory producing a chemical that's then going to go into cell making, that goes into batteries, that then goes into the EVs, and the batteries are the most expensive component. And we've got some fabulous mineral assets in Ontario and in Idaho, but all of our focus has to be on getting ourselves to cash flow, getting ourselves to production of a critical mineral that America and Canada desperately want to see brought to the fore. And so the focus for us right now is to complete the feasibility study. Ausenco Engineering did a scoping study for us in 2019. Looked very promising, competitive on the operating costs, modest capex, $37.5 million was their estimate. So we need to validate all of this work. And so by the end of Q1, we expect to see either a pre-feas or feasibility study on just a quick restart. It's at 12 tons a day. It's effectively a giant pilot plant. It's going to give us the comfort in the flow sheet, give us the operating experience, and give us a product that we can then take to battery makers around the world to then develop long-term relationships. And then we'll also have a feasibility study on the expanded scenario. And so using the footprint of the refinery, there's the refinery building proper, a big warehouse next to it. By maximizing that footprint, we wanted to see where we could get to. And 55 tons per day of production would seem to be the scenario. We got a feasibility study on that. Our projections is that at that throughput rate with the feed material that Glencore would like to provide us, is that we could produce about 5,000 tons of cobalt or 25,000 tons of cobalt sulfate product per annum, which gives us a pretty big market share. We become one of the more meaningful cobalt refineries in the world. And so what I expect in terms of catalyst would be get the feasibility studies done, aim to get a quick restart. We think we could be there in maybe 6 months' time, which would get us towards the end of the year. And then within a year, look to do the expansion and the permit amendments to allow us to then go to that expanded footprint. So a key attribute of our ability to kind of move forward is the relationship with Glencore. They're, of course, a giant in the commodity space, and they happen to be the world's biggest cobalt miner. So when you look at sort of how do we partner with a bigger player to get ourselves there, we landed in the right place. And we are geographically, we're actually situated right in between their Sudbury nickel operations and their Horn copper smelter in Quebec. So they've been very, very supportive. And the arrangement we're looking at out of the gate is under a framework agreement that we need to formalize. Would be they would provide the feed to us for a period of some 4 years. They would then also provide all the capital, and as a result of that, we would then give them the right to the offtake rights on the product as well. And so, for our first 4 years, they would advance 37.5, call it $40 million US. It would get us to production. It would limit any kind of equity dilution on our shareholders, and that would allow us to pay down that debt over the 4-year term of the facility, and then face the market thereafter as with our own product and our own offtake. So I'm quite happy. The technical support, the financial support, the commercial backing of the biggest trader and miner of cobalt worldwide sets us up for real success, both in terms of execution and fast tracking our progress to production. I think the most exciting thing for us is how we've been able to differentiate First Cobalt from all of our cobalt peers. We had a really bull run in 2017, early 18. Cobalt went to all-time highs and then came off, and probably a little bit of exuberance with the EV revolution. It's coming, it's still coming, but that was followed by a pretty big sell-off, and a lot of the cobalt players that were in the space, frankly, are no longer active or no longer around. There is a handful of us, but we are the only cobalt junior out there that has the potential of seeing production and cash flow this year. I think we stand to deliver some great value, and our partnership with Glencore is key to getting there. So we've got a great ally, and I'd also add that we're responding to a real serious policy concern out of Washington. President Trump put cobalt on the list of critical minerals, and if you want to foster a domestic supply of cobalt, at least in the short term, the best way to do it is for us to get our hands on existing supply that's already present in the DRC and divert it away from China and into America via Canada. And under our free trade agreement, it's an integrated supply chain from the automotive side, and we become an important player. And I would dare say, with fair conviction here, that we've got good support from Ottawa and from Washington in what we're doing. So as we enter into 2020, we're coming off of, a cobalt malaise. We see the uptick in the commodity price. We see a lot more exuberance around EVs, particularly out of Europe, which had a very strong year last year. And so we're setting ourselves up for yet another leg up on the EV movement. First Cobalt is playing into that really nicely. We could be first production, first cash flow in November, December of this year. And as an investor, myself in my own company and investors out there, I think we should be very excited for the path, the road that we've laid ahead, and how this fits in some of the macro factors that are really starting to line up nice for ourselves and for the global EV movement. If you want to learn more about First Cobalt, our website is firstcobalt.com, and by email it would be info@firstcobalt.com. We take every shareholder inquiry seriously and would love to hear from you.